Ayo, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Alvin from L.T.A, aka Let's Talk About It. And in this episode, let's talk about the NBA Western Conference Finals. Now, for those of you that are unaware, we are about to witness tip-off between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves in what should be a great showcase of basketball. Now, this is somewhat of a more interesting conference finals because for the first time in a while, we have somewhat, they're not evenly matched up, but they're two teams with really strong key points that might really cause issues for the other. So let's firstly start off by talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, obviously, these guys have had a longer break than the Thunder in the fact that their series went to 5. Let's actually catch up on how the Timberwolves got to the Western Conference Finals. Now, as we know at the beginning of the season, obviously they made a trade for Julius Randle, which in my personal opinion at the time was a bit of a, I don't get it. Both Julius Randle and Karl Anthony Towns were known as being really good players, both just not being utilized correctly. Julius on the side of he would get you a bunch of points but wouldn't really be effective during the playoffs, and Karl Anthony Towns in the fact of he wasn't being as aggressive as you would have wanted from a guy who's about 7 foot tall and weighs more than the majority of the people on the floor. But somehow, through this trade, the Timberwolves managed to finish 3rd in the Northwestern Division, finishing with a 49-33 record, which obviously meant that for majority of the playoffs, they were going to be on the road. Now, they did play L.A. in their first round, where they managed to get a gentleman's sweep over the Lakers. I really do believe this was the first time we really saw a showcase of how good the Timberwolves could be, because throughout these entire playoffs, we've noticed that they've had terrible shooting spells. I believe they've put up some of the worst shooting spells outside of Boston, but again, that's because Boston will heave up like 53 pointers a game and call it a good night. However, as I said, they managed to get done with the Lakers within 5, gentleman's sweep, losing the second game at LA. And then when it came to the Warriors, they lost the first game, and then obviously Steph getting injured played a really key part in them winning within 5, but I really do believe even if Steph played, this would have most likely gone to 6, maybe 7, but the Timberwolves are going to come out dominant. Now, the reason I say the Timberwolves are going to come out dominant throughout any of these last 2 series is, first off, Anthony Edwards, averaging about 26.5 points, 6.6 defensive rebounds, 1.4 offensive, 8 total rebounds, and 5.9 assists, 1.5 steals, and 0.8 blocks. He's shooting about 39% from 3, 74% from the free throw line, and about 45% from the field. This is somewhat efficient, and it looks good, but in reality, he's had some really bad shooting games throughout these playoffs. And the key thing to note about that is majority of times what we see with young players is really bad shooting spells continue to just get compiled on with more shooting and less passing. However, Anthony Edwards' case, we've noticed that he really started to move the ball around, even managing to tack up a double-double in his final game against the Golden State Warriors. Now, obviously, this was a Steph Curry-less team, but either way, that doesn't mean on the defensive end they should have been slouching, so it did showcase quite a bit. But the big thing spearheading Minnesota throughout these entire playoffs has to be Julius Randle. Now, as I did say at the beginning of the video, he was known as being prolific in the regular season, averaging a bunch of points, averaging a bunch of rebounds with a couple of assists. And then when it came to the playoffs, it was always a thing of he would disappear when you really need him. However, during this playoff run, even though Anthony Edwards has better stats on paper, Julius Randle has played the most pivotal role, averaging 23.9 points, 5.9 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 0.8 steals, and 0.2 blocks, with slightly more turnovers, but shooting 35% from 3, 89% from the free throw line, and about 51% from the field. Now, the reason I say this plays a big part. When you watch the Timberwolves play, you'll notice Julius Randle manages to draw attention. And this really benefits Anthony Edwards in the fact that majority of the times when he used to play with Karl Anthony Towns, there was only the fear that Cat would shoot the 3. You wouldn't be necessarily too scared of him trying to body you up in the middle of the paint, mainly because, as I said before, he wasn't that aggressive. Whereas with Julius, we're noticing a lot throughout these playoffs, he gets the ball either in the high post or catches it at 3 and basically barrels down to the rim as much as he can, or finds his way to a nice little position to get that sweet left-handed jumper off, or just generally throw a left-handed push shot or floater as B. And with this, it spreads the floor for Anthony Edwards, which obviously means it makes it harder for teams to double team him. And we saw that a lot during the playoffs. Like, we saw defenses trying to blitz him out of the whole hope of if you blitz him, he's forced into quick thinking. And in those situations, most young players result to throwing turnovers or just generally putting up something bad that they probably shouldn't do. But that's not what we saw here. But anyway, the Timberwolves made their way to the conference finals by firstly knocking off the LeBron James-led Los Angeles Lakers, even with the AC 130 overhead to show that LeBron fouled AE. And then obviously knocking off the Golden State Warriors, where playoff Jimmy did not show up, which that's another video on its own, because I believe the whole playoff Jimmy thing is a little bit of a myth, but maybe it's kind of true. Now, on the other side of the bracket in the Western Conference Finals, we do have the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you did not tune in to that Sunday night, or should I say Sunday afternoon for you Americans, game between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets, you missed some of the greatest basketball you will ever see in your life. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what we witnessed was a team that had a barely 2-point lead with a few minutes left in the second quarter go up by damn near 30 in the third quarter. Like, this game was done in the third. It was done midway through the third. There was no need for the Joker and everybody else to stay out there, because these boys, in the second quarter, they outscored them by 19. In the third quarter, they outscored them by 11. And then in the last quarter, they outscored them by 7. But that was only because about a third of the way into the quarter, both teams basically emptied out their bench because the game was done. And I personally know this because Jamal Murray really does sell any parlay I ever have. And on the other side of it, Nikola Jokic not playing the fourth really screwed me. But we're not here to talk about my gambling issues. We're here to talk about how the Thunder made their way to the Western Conference Finals. So getting back onto case. Now, in the first round, the Thunder obviously took up the more inferior matchup of playing the Grizzlies. They managed to get them swept within 4 games. If you saw that series, none of the games were really a game, outside of maybe you could say game 3 and game 4. But even then, the Thunder dominated these guys in ways where it was embarrassing to watch. And let me not say it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing on the side of being a Grizzlies fan. It was quite entertaining on the side of being an NBA fan. Mainly because we were seeing dominance in a way of not only scoring on a team, but also locking them up. And then obviously coming up against the Nuggets, this went to 7. Some of the games, they lost game 1. The funniest thing that I remember from losing game 1 was everyone saw that little clip of SGA at the end of the game laughing, which was a clear sign that this man knows something, has an idea for what to do next. And we saw that with them winning game 2, losing game 3, but then managing to win game 4 and game 5 before losing game 6, and then obviously just dominating these guys out in game 7. Now, it has not been a lone job by SGA on his own to get the Thunder through this. First key contributor that we got to name out is Jalen Williams. He has had a few bad games throughout these series, but through majority of it, he has really played really well, including in the last game where I took him for over 31 points, assists, and rebounds, and he hit. So that's number 1. He scores efficiently, averaging about 19.6 points, 4.2 defensive rebounds, 1.2 offensive, 5.7 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.7 blocks, while shooting approximately 44% from the field, 25% from 3, which is kind of bad, and so, I say kind of, it is bad, and 75% from the free throw line. Really and truly, currently looking at the stats of all the Thunder's players, they shoot about 32% from the 3-point line. SGA shoots about 29, 25% from Jalen Williams, 32% from Chet, 42% from Caruso, 28% from Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm butchering the name, but you get what I'm trying to say. Basically, everyone in the starting lineup, the highest shooting 3-point percentage is Chet Holmgren at 32%. But these guys are blowing teams out. And that's played in big key by the fact of how they play their defense. Now, with players like Dort, Jalen Williams, Hartenstein, especially Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, and Cason Wallace, you see a lot of defensive appearances, which is why the Thunder don't really run that deep of a team when playing through these playoff series. They run about a 10-man roster, starting the usual 5 that you'd expect. And then coming off the bench, of course, you have Caruso, Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, and Jalen Williams, who played a good job in guarding Jokic. And yeah, I would explain more about them getting to the Western Conference Finals, but the simplest way to put it is this. They're the youngest team in NBA history to make a conference finals, and them going up against the Timberwolves is going to be insane because let's compare the teams. On one side, you have the Timberwolves coming in with what is it's a really strong offense. The Timberwolves have a mindset of not letting themselves really fall into bad form. When I say this, I mean when the game's going bad, most teams just continue to do, I will remark, the Celtics again. When they're doing horribly from 3, they continue chucking those 3s, hoping that eventually they'll go in. The Timberwolves are a little bit different. If they're shooting horribly, which they have been regularly, they will then try and attack the rim to maybe get a bucket another way, which is kind of smart. They'll move the ball around and they do the best they can. Whereas on the side of the Thunder, as you've seen, from the 3-point line, they're not shooting amazingly. From the field, everyone is shooting well. In the starting lineup, we've got Isaiah Hartenstein shooting about 61%, mainly because it's push shots. Chet shooting about 45%. Jalen Williams about 44, SGA about 48, and Dort at the lowest at about 33% whilst attempting 8 field goals, which is really efficient. The only issue is shooting threes, but they run off the back end of, they don't need to shoot those many threes. The Thunder's main emphasis is play defense really well, force teams into bad situations, and basically attack you on a fast break and score. Now, how do they fare up against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Pound for pound, the SGA versus Anthony Edwards back and forth might be quite entertaining to watch, but the real matchup to see will be Chet Holmgren versus Julius Randle. Mainly because Julius outstrengths Chet. So there's no way Chet's going to be able to guard him. More likely than not, they're going to have to switch to letting Jalen Williams guard him, in which case Chet's going to be on none other than Jaden McDaniels, which I personally, if I'm Jaden McDaniels, I hope you're fast enough to get past this man. I don't think you might be, just because I'm pretty sure Jaden McDaniels stands in at about 6'8", 6'10", so it won't be a speed advantage, in which case Chet will be kind of fortunate because I know size-wise he's not going to be as strong as Julius Randle would be. So yeah, on the Timberwolves side, Julius Randle plays the biggest part. Secondary and step behind him will be none other than Naz Reid. Key emphasis of this is the Thunder are small. When I say they're small, I mean as in Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein are two really big players, but those both play in the starting lineup. After that, the next biggest players that you have coming off the bench in the rotation they do run is Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso. Now, we saw Caruso play a great job of defending Jokic throughout the semifinals, but that mainly came from the fact that they were also trying to run doubles to basically stint the idea of throwing the ball into him. However, when Naz Reid is on the floor, it's going to be a bit of a mismatch for them because they don't have anyone size-wise that can truly match. And if they decide to run the thing of putting Jalen Williams on him, it does open up the floor quite a bit better because Naz Reid is quicker than Jalen. Like, the Thunder benefited in that the defense they were playing on Jokic was helped by how slow Jokic was in regards to being able to move around, but that won't work with a team like the Timberwolves where the bigs move their feet, with the slowest person being Rudy, and in any situation Rudy will be guarded by Hartenstein. Now, where the Thunder benefit and how they'll be able to attack the Timberwolves, the starting lineup is fast. When I say the starting lineup is fast, the Thunder play a good old emphasis of force you into a bad shot and get into the races because they're young, and as we know, young people playing basketball, speed galore. So their biggest emphasis is going to be draw fouls as they usually do, attack the basket as quick as you can, and basically force the Timberwolves into situations where they can't get into set defenses. Then I'm assuming when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be play off Rudy and basically try and deny the ball getting to Julius Randle by all means necessary. Because, yeah, in this playoffs, like, if you had to give an award, Julius Randle's in the running for the MVP of the playoffs right now. That's how well he's been playing throughout any of the series the Timberwolves have been playing in, and that's how well the Thunder are going to need to play him. Another really great player on the other side is Chet. Chet, despite averaging 15.7, is averaging about 9.7 rebounds, which is partnered up by the fact that he is playing with heart. Plus, the way the boy can put the ball on the floor at 7 feet tall is quite impeccable. Isaiah Hartenstein, this is going to be an easier job for him than guarding Jokic, mainly because, as we know, Rudy Gobert is quite offensively inept, so it's not going to be that hard of a matchup for him. So if we had to go matchup for matchup, when it comes to the point guard position, I'm giving it to the Thunder because the starting point guard for the Timberwolves is going to be none other than Mike Conley. At the shooting guard position, we have Dort versus Anthony Edwards. That's going to be a good matchup just because Dort is fast, strong, and defensively minded, in which case it's going to be how well can Anthony Edwards get by him. The only thing about Dort is he does have a tendency to give up fouls here and there, so that should be something to pay attention to, averaging 3.1 fouls per game, just behind Isaiah Hartenstein, which obviously was forced by the fact that he was guarding Jokic. Next matchup is at the small forward position. We have Jaden McDaniels versus most likely Jalen Williams. I ain't gonna lie to you, that one's a bit of a toss-up, mainly because Jaden McDaniels' offensive talents, they're not amazing, but they're quite good, but his defensive talents are impeccable. And Jalen Williams, defensively, really good, and then offensively, it's a hit or miss recently, which is kind of scary because if it's a hit, the Thunder are on. If it's a miss, the Thunder are in a bad place. And then obviously at the power forward position, we have Chet versus Julius Randle. I'd love to give it to Chet, but Julius wins this. And then at the center, it's Isaiah Hartenstein versus Rudy Gobert. Hartenstein is averaging about 10.3 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 2.8 assists, whilst Gobert is averaging about 8.9, 9.6 rebounds, and 0.3 assists. But it's key to point out that these numbers are quite down, mainly because it was kind of hard for the Timberwolves to play him throughout their series against both the Lakers and the Warriors, mainly because teams hunt him when he's on the defensive end because they know his speed isn't that fast. So I gotta go with Hartenstein. It's weird. I never thought I'd have a situation where I'm picking Isaiah Hartenstein over another player when it comes to center position. Not to mock his game, but I'm just saying there's a lot of really great centers that start, so kind of strange. Bench-wise, you got Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, and of course Alex Caruso going head-to-head against Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid. Naz Reid helps the Timberwolves side of things, him and Dante DiVincenzo. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I will not lie, this has not been the greatest playoffs for him. He is shooting about 36% from the field, 29% from 3, while shooting a nice 92% from the free throw line, but he needs to do a lot more if the Timberwolves aim to make the NBA Finals. But either way, this again should be another great series to watch. Fortunately, in the first round, the best series to watch was the Clippers versus the Nuggets. In the second round, it was the Nuggets versus the Thunder. And now in these conference finals, it's gonna be the Timberwolves versus the Thunder. No matter who comes out of this, I'm happy to see either one of these two superstars basically make a name for themselves by winning a ring this year, hopefully. Unless if it doesn't come to either of these two, it has to come home to New York. But anyway, that's tomorrow's video, and we will discuss that tomorrow. My pick for game one, I'm taking the Thunder, mainly because they're coming off of having played on Sunday night, Sunday afternoon technically, and they'll be playing on Tuesday night, which basically means a 2-day rest. Whereas for the Timberwolves, yeah, you've had the longer period of rest, but that's not always a benefit when you got to get back into running immediately off of that. Because any practices you do run, it might feel, yeah, but you're used to playing these guys in practices regularly. These are your teammates. Whereas for the Thunder, they've had the fortune of having to play another team 2 days ago, which should have prepped them for this whole situation. Plus, they are playing at home, so there's no need for them to fly out to Minnesota. Minnesota's got to fly out to them. Hopefully, they've already landed. But yeah, it's been your boy Alvin from L.T.A. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel and you ain't done so yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more content like it, hit that like button. And down below in the comment section, let me know, who do you think is going to win this series? Is it going to be the Thunder, or is it going to be the Timberwolves? I'll see you most likely tomorrow when we discuss the Knicks versus the Pacers. No way the most overrated player in the NBA is now in the conference finals. Deuces.